Say you were born in 1982. What generation are you? How about 1961 or 2005? Seems like an easy question, but the answer might not be so simple. I get a lot of comments on my Generation Jones videos. Most of them are positive, overwhelmingly so. Things like, "Now I finally know where I fit in," or "Thank you for posting this. I'd never heard of Generation Jones before." But every once in a while I get a different kind of comment. Something like, "No, you're wrong. Boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. That's it. Case closed." And that got me thinking. I've never really thought generations worked like hard boxes. To me, people are more like a sliding scale. Someone might feel 60% boomer and 40% Gen X. And birth year is only one small part of the story. When you start factoring in things like your parents' worldview, your family's economic situation, where you grew up, and the events happening in the world while you were coming of age, things start getting complicated pretty quickly. So I started thinking about how you might illustrate that idea, and the simplest thing I could come up with was a color spectrum. For the sake of our discussion, let's assign colors to our generations. Let's make boomers red, Gen X can be yellow, millennials are blue, and Gen Z is violet. Traditionally, generations are drawn like this: boomers, Gen X, millennials, Generation Z. 4 neat little boxes, color-coded for your convenience. Which means, according to this system, something magical happens at midnight on December 31st. One day you're a boomer. The next day, you're Gen X. Think about it. You could be a twin. What if you were born at 11:55 p.m. on December 31st, 1981? Your twin sister could be born 7 minutes later. Guess what? According to the traditional model, you're Gen X and she's a millennial. That's like a story out of Ripley's Believe It or Not. But we all know real life doesn't work like that. Culture doesn't flip overnight. And people don't suddenly wake up with a completely different generational identity just because the calendar changed. So what if we thought about generations like this instead? Instead of big boxes, a spectrum. Take a second and find your birth year on the chart. What color did you land on? Now, look at what happens near the boundary. If you were born here, you're not completely red anymore, but you're not fully yellow either. You're somewhere in between. That transition group is often called Generation Jones. Not quite boomer, not quite Gen X, just part of the blend. And the same thing happens across the entire chart. Between Gen X and millennials, you have exennials. Some people pronounce it zennials. I prefer it the other way, or it sounds too close to zillennials, who live at the intersection of millennials and Gen Z. Wherever generations meet, the colors blend, because generations aren't really solid colors. They're gradients. Of course, this chart only shows birth year. Real life adds a lot more colors to the mix. Family background, economics, technology, world events. All of it shapes how we see the world, which means none of us are really just one color. We're all a blend. Take a look at the chart. Find your birth year. And tell me in the comments, what color did you land on? Are you solid red? Solid blue? Somewhere in the blend? I have a feeling we're going to see some pretty interesting shades down there.